Herr Kahn, wie holt man eigentlich das Double?
Ganz einfach, mit einem neuen Samsung QLED TV.
Jetzt QLED TV Aktionsgerät kaufen und Gutscheine für 6 Monate Live-Fußball aus europäischen Top-Ligen bekommen. Über Sky Ticket, The Zone und Eurosport Player in der Samsung Sportworld App. Mehr Infos auf samsung.de/sportworld.
Nur bis zum 17. Juni.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Blog Talk broadcast of Kundalini Awakening. My name is Chrism. I'm your host for this conversation. This conversation will last about 2 hours. I would like to welcome Her Holiness, Santara. Hello, Santara. How are you?
I'm very good, Chrism. Thank you.
Good. And I'd like to make sure that everybody is hearing us okay. So if the people that are in the chat room, Mary Jean, Vincent, would type and let us know if the sound is coming through, it would be much appreciated. I'd prefer to get started knowing that some people at least are hearing what is being said. So, good sound. Thank you, Mary Jean. Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. And we're beginning here. And Brent, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so here we go. One of the more challenging aspects of the Kundalini Awakening process is how your personality has to undergo some changes. It undergoes these changes by levels of stress, by levels of a very basic teaching pattern. Basically, kind of based on Pavlovian understandings. Pavlov, a Russian gentleman by the name of Pavlov, would teach his dogs to respond to certain stimulus, and he would use food. And this Pavlovian method of teaching evolved into humans teaching humans on the basis of very similar scenarios, such as when you ring a bell, the dogs would know that they were going to be fed, and if the bell was rung twice, then that would mean something else, and they learned to expect that. And with the Kundalini will often take a reward type of matrix within its teachings, so that if you do something right, well, you get rewarded. Let's say you'd be rewarded with bliss, or you'd be rewarded with some sort of an outcome that was wanted by you, and if you didn't receive that trigger, well, then of course, that wouldn't allow you to have what you're trying to have. Well, with Kundalini, there's a level of personality transformation. We move from living solidly within the ego, which is how everybody starts off with this. We move from living solidly within the ego to putting the ego aside, not killing it, but putting it aside and taking it out of the control seat. Now, that will create a lot of friction within the individual, a lot of friction about, well, am I doing the right thing? Is this an appropriate thing for me to do, to move outside of my fears and my wants and my concerns and my anxieties and my need for control over my life and my need for predictive control over my life, and it is indeed the appropriate thing to do within the Kundalini Awakening, and really this is really going to tie down very, very, very strongly with just those people who are having Kundalini Awakening, because very few other things, except perhaps a possession. Possession might hit you in a very similar way, but not the exact same way. This comes to those who are Kundalini activated or who are being drawn to the Kundalini. All of a sudden, finding enough energy for a practice becomes compulsive. You must find the energy to do your practice and to do it every day. As I've mentioned in other programs, when this occurred for me in my activated state, I was literally compelled to practice 5 hours a day, every day, for I don't know how long, I don't know how many years. I mean, she gave me a position, she gave me a job in a company where the chairman of the board needed medical assistance and needed to be, taken to all of the different programs that he was involved with, chairman of the board meetings, or meetings at certain outlets of his company where he needed to talk to managers and things of that nature. And so I was given the job from the Kundalini, literally, because this came through a friend who I would never work for. It's just, we didn't have that kind of relationship, but he said he was in need. He was the CEO of his father's company, and he asked me personally if I would work with his father in that way, and I did. And right in the middle of my Kundalini activation, you must remember that I'm having surges of energy. I'm having very, very strong compellings to do certain things, and so I accepted that, and I received a level of bliss for accepting that role, because inside of that position, I was able to do a Kundalini practice 5 hours every day, every working day. And I would just put the 5 hours in on the weekend, because with Kundalini, you don't get time off. There is no vacation. There is no maternity leave for Kundalini, even though you're the child that's being birthed. So within that understanding, I want you to realize that those of you who are getting pulled into certain activities such as, say, yoga or Tai Chi, or certain areas of Qigong, or you just find yourself correcting yourself away from resisting the Kundalini in its many, many formats that it comes to you. So, for instance, all of a sudden you become a lot more forgiving, a lot more patient, a lot more tolerant, much more honest with others, honest with yourself. These are very, very, very strong teaching environments that the Kundalini will create within the individual. And you'll think, you all of a sudden you'll be saying, "Oh gosh, I need to do Tai Chi," and you've never done Tai Chi before, and you're kind of looking at that and going, "Well, where the heck did that come from?" And it's coming directly from the Kundalini. You got to understand that Kundalini, being of a divine nature, is not tied into one particular thing that has religious resonance that says, "Oh, because this is an eightfold path, or this is a path of unity, or this." It doesn't really care about that. It cares about the very specific things that it gives for you to do to bring your inner environment up to the point where it can have and hold a stronger Kundalini activation, leading to an awakening. This is what the Kundalini cares about. Kundalini is way beyond religion. You'll get a lot of the religions right now, and they'll say, "Oh, well, gosh, you're having images of black dogs with red eyes wanting to bite you, and oh, Satan is after you, my friend. Satan is hot on your trail. You had best get your happy little rear end down there to that church and pray for forgiveness from God Almighty." Or, you'd be given advice that says, "My friend, you must go to your guru. You must come to your guru. You must give him everything you are. Touch his feet, lick his feet, give him everything that you are, and let the guru come in between you and those red dog and the red eyes, the black dog and the red eyes." I know that sounded Mexican, but I'm not really good at my Indian accent today. Or you'd be sent to the psych ward, saying, "Oh, well, red dogs or black dogs, red eyes. I think that's we have medication for that." And so there you go. You take the medication, you wind up in a psych ward, all because of Kundalini. Now, of course, as many of us know from the previous programs, if a red dog or a red-eyed black dog comes up to you in the dream state and starts to want to bite you, you are to offer him your arm or her your arm and let her bite you. It's a fear test is all it is. It's a fear test given by the Shakti Kundalini so that the person doesn't or begins to respond to fear-evoking experiences in a very, very different way. In a way that has a total trust for the divine that is expressing themselves within the individual. So it's very, very, very important that you begin to feel these new compellings and respond to these new compellings in a very, very, very unblocked way. In many cases, our ego is going to stretch out and try to retake its position of control within the individual. And I'll tell you what, the stronger the ego, the larger the materialization of certain kinds of animals that are challenging to a person will become. So, for instance, the larger the ego, the larger and longer the Kundalini serpents will appear to an individual. The more vicious and giant, the black dog with red glowing eyes will reach out to you. I mean, all the different Kundalini creatures, the eagles, the praying mantis, the tiger, the lion, the orca, the shark, whatever it is that the Kundalini is appearing to you with regards to an animal will appear larger and more ominous when the ego is in a very, very strong and profound state of control over the individual. And so it's very important for those people to begin to pay attention to what the Kundalini is telling them as opposed to what the ego is telling them. And the ego is typically going to try to keep your status quo intact. The ego is saying, hey, we like things just the way it is. I'm used to my fears. I'm used to my, the qualities of life that I'm expressing right now. I like my fear. I like my anxieties. I like having everything in my life that I have reference for and that I can control. Maybe. Okay, that would be the ego speaking to the individual. The Kundalini speaking to the individual will basically say, here, you must do this. And then you'll feel that strong, amazing level of feeling and of the being compelled. And it's not a hurtful compelling. It's not like you're in pain and so you must do something to assuage the pain. Although in some ways, if you're resisting a lot, it can come to you that way. And yes, you might feel some guilt or some sort of an emotion that would indicate that you're sorry for missing your practice or doing things of this nature. But as the Kundalini compels you, you'll feel that compelling is very, very, very different from how the ego feels when it is compelling you to do something. And so that is something that you need to honor. And and this opens up a whole level of living your life within an environment that begins to constantly expand itself. So you're being given an environment that is doubling itself on top of, let's just say, the 5 sense environment that you typically live from. Okay? You're having a whole new dimension added to that environment from the Kundalini. So in that dimension exists entities, all different shapes and forms and levels of consciousness of spiritual entity. We're talking, the mid to lower astral here. And, we have the scary ones, we have the lovey ones, we have the parasiticals. There's a lot of parasiticals there. We have those that will never take a human form, but they love to mess around with the humans that are having the human form. And so this overlay, this environmental overlay of our 5 sense environment is definitely controlled by the Kundalini. She will drop things in as you mature within within the current station where you are right now within your activated state. And I'm going to flip on over here to Santara. Santara, we have a new caller down there with an 814 area code. If you go ahead and see if they have a question, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. So, with regards to this overlay, as the Kundalini Shakti begins to drop new subject matters from this new environment into your current five sense environment, great changes are going to need to be made. Extremely strong changes. In many ways, you will be forced to be more forgiving, more tolerant, more patient, more honest, more loving, more understanding, more compassionate. You will be given specific types of compelling to go out and be of service in the environment, in your social environment, in your city, in your culture, wherever you may be. It will give you the opportunity to do these things, and it will create that opportunity out of. It almost seems, in many ways, the Kundalini will create things out of thin air, just for you to have interaction with, and I think in some cases that is actually true. Something is being created where nothing was there before. But in other ways, people and animals and events here on this world are being manipulated so that they will express in whatever way the Shakti wants them to express towards you in your living real-time environment. And so I think it's very important for you to really begin to assess what it is the Kundalini wants you to do, and then just do it. One of the most difficult things that the Kundalini will expect you to do is if she has assigned a teacher to you, i.e., an example, you may be dreaming, you may have in your dreams somebody's name come to you. We'll just make up a name here. We'll call the Kundalini teacher Vanna White. We'll call her Stephanie White. So somebody named Stephanie White may be teaching Kundalini somewhere, and the Shakti wants you as an individual to go to that teacher and to begin to take the teachings from that teacher. Well, you've never heard of Stephanie White. You don't really care to hear about Stephanie White, and you're not really looking for a teacher, except you're dreaming about being pointed to a teacher whose name is Stephanie White almost every night now. The dreams will come in different ways, but the message is always the same. You need to look up Stephanie White on the internet, and you need to start studying with her. Okay, this is what happens with a lot of the people that find out about Chrism. The Shakti Kundalini comes to them in their dreams and begins to point them towards that specific teacher. It's very, very important that you don't resist this. And furthermore, when you finally start working with that teacher, well, the Kundalini will compel you to do things with that teacher that you would never do with another person, such as pray to the Shakti within that teacher, or pray to the Kundalini that teacher can help you in a certain area, things of that nature. We're not really designed in the Western civilization, the highly technological civilization that we're in right now. We're not really. I got some sort of a ding here. I wonder. Just a second, my friends. Here, I'll just take myself out of these areas here, trying to clear up. Oh yeah, it probably came from here. All right, here we go. Yeah. So, you must begin to ultimately trust the Kundalini with your life. You must begin to trust the Kundalini with your life. And this, once again, is not easy at all. How do you trust you trust your life to some invisible consciousness that is compelling you to do all these things? Well, it's not as hard as it sounds, and yet it is if you're still in a very strong and tight control by the ego personality that is currently running your system. You have to let go of that ego system. You cannot keep attaching yourself to that which once was, to that which is now unfolding. Kundalini has come to you, and in whatever way it has come to you, whether you've you've done it through extreme levels of prayer within a religion, if you've done it through having interaction, say intimate interaction with a Kundalini awakened individual, if you've had it through Shaktipat or the gift of grace given by a guru or somebody who is set up by the Kundalini to give people itself within them. However it has come to you, whether, even through a severe accident, with severe trauma to the lower spine, that can also activate the Kundalini. However it has come to you, you have to really begin to give yourself into that, to really allow yourself to be molded and shaped and sculpted by the inner divine that's expressing itself through you right now. And so it will have you do things that you would not normally do, and you dare not resist that. If you resist it, you're not going to be severely punished. I mean, for some people that may be the case, but for most, you're not going to be put on the rack or tortured in some way. Not at all. I mean, you may feel levels of guilt, and that guilt is of a very special kind. It's of a guilt, and I've experienced this. As he raises his hand like a basketball player, I have had the experience of resisting the Kundalini in what it wants me to do in my practice or in my life. And what happens is you get a form of a heartbreak occur, which actually goes way beyond guilt. You feel like you have, it definitely brings tears to your eyes. You feel very sad. You feel very like you've let yourself down or somebody else down in the most extreme way. And so that can often happen as you have you've made declarations. I will follow my Kundalini. I will obey the teacher that my Kundalini's brought me to. Blah blah blah. And then one day you say, "I'll forget this. This is just way too challenging for me. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done." Boom. Then the heartbreak comes in, and then boom, you're going, wait a minute here. I take it all back. Obviously, I'm not done here. So the Kundalini will come to you, but she doesn't come to you in a way that to punish you in a way that would be in any kind of a Hollywood type of reference or the reference that we get out of fictions or some of the warlike scenarios that we have here on this world. She'll come in and she'll just go right to your love center and she'll say, "Hey, you don't get to just ignore me now because you're beginning to be lazy." Okay. Not everybody will have that happen to them, but I had it happen to me and others have had it happen to them. And so I know that there's a level of consistency with that understanding. And so as you begin this change in the way you live your life, you must not drag your feet. You must not drag your feet. If you're interacting with the Shakti itself, well, that's one thing. I mean, when you interact with the Shakti, then you have to earn the level of her presence that she comes to you in. And by that, I mean that you have to do the practice all the time, like I was doing. I didn't have a teacher, but I was compelled to do 5 hours of practice every day. Okay? And I did that. And it felt good for me to do that. And maybe that was another aspect of her Pavlovian training with me, but it felt good and it felt reasonable and it felt like I was accomplishing something, even though I didn't know what that end result was. I trusted the Kundalini in me that the practice I was doing at worst would just make me a better person. I would just, I would interact with other people in a much more clear, concise, loving, beneficial way. And this is what she is promoting. Believe me, the negativity won't miss you. There's plenty of negativity in this world, and it's the positivity that is far outshined by the levels of war and rape and the abuse of humans and animals on this world. Oh my God! Just look on the internet and see what we do to our precious pets. see what we do to the animals that we feed ourselves with, and you can kind of get an understanding that negativity is not going to be affected by your positivity until your Kundalini expands it to such an amazing volcanic eruption of positivity. Well, that will definitely have an impact on the global levels of negativity. But right now I'm talking to you who are in that formative stage, who are in that stage that are in the activated state and they're working towards the awakened state where they have the Kundalini rush up the spine, fountain out the top of their head, and they become at one with divinity. They become at one with God. They become at one with everything at the same time. This is a spinal sweep. All the chakras open up. The Kundalini from the base of the spine rushes up and out the top, rushes up and out the top of the head, but also up and out the third eye, the sixth chakra. And sometimes people will have a serpent come out of their third eye, and this is called a uraeus. And if you want to look that up on the web, that's spelled U-R-E-A-S, uraeus. And that is what you'll see on the Egyptians. The Egyptian pharaohs would have one or two serpents coming out of their third eye. And because the Egyptians knew a lot about the Kundalini, they knew to depict it. This is not some sort of fantasy that they were sculpting into their statues or painting into their paintings. This is a real deal. And this is what I had happen to me. When my Kundalini came up in me, it came out the seventh chakra straight up and down, and then it came out the sixth chakra as the uraeus. I even felt it with my hands. This is the real thing. This you can actually trace back into many different cultures, ancient cultures that have recognized that have had this happen. It's a real deal, and it happens to people that are having the Kundalini spinal sweep, not so much the activation. You can have the spontaneous movements within an activation, which are called kriyas. You can also have the spontaneous movements within the awakening. These kriyas can come either way. You don't want to try to make judgments on yourself with how far you are into this simply by virtue of how the phenomena feels. But you can feel the level of Kundalini interaction with you. You feel it when it allows you to feel it. And sometimes it'll come on really, 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 really strong for a matter of months, and then it just backs off completely, and you wonder, what the heck did I do to make the Shakti angry at me? Why? Where did she go? What did I do? And she hasn't gone anywhere. She's helping you not become so overly attached to your phenomena. She doesn't want you to gauge your Kundalini by the aspect of herself that is infusing you by levels that are strictly phenomenological, phenomena-based. This is not what she wants you to do. Certainly she wants you to accept them, but she doesn't want you to use them as a total meter of where you are within the practice, because she'll just take it away sometimes. And sometimes she takes it away because the body just needs to process what it has already received. Has nothing to do with whether you have angered the Shakti or not, which she doesn't really get angry in the ways that humans do. That's another thing you need to understand. Even inside of the training that the Shakti gives you, even when you're being corrected, there's a level of joy and love and bliss within those corrections and within those understandings. You just have to be able to get to a point where you can receive that. And if you do your practice every day, and in this case, I'm going to suggest the practice of the safeties. Go to Kundalini Awakening Systems, #1.com. On the left side margin, go down 5 options, and you'll see the safeties. Click on the safeties. Print those safeties out, and I've got them in a few different languages now. So if you're in a different language, print it out in the language that you're familiar with, and read them over and over and over, and begin to make those corrections inside your life. Put your tongue up. Put your finger and your forefinger tip and your thumb tips together. bring your eyes up in meditation. Bring your chin slightly down in meditation. Keep yourself well hydrated. Have that watermelon. Have that coconut water. Let the Shakti choose whether you eat meat or whether you eat plants or whether you eat a combination of both. Don't believe in the vegetarians, the rabid vegetarians that are saying, oh, you cruel person, you are killing animals. Because if all I want you to do is just open your eyes and look at the forest and look at the jungle and look at the animals are doing to each other. That's how this world operates. This is a predation world. Now, it doesn't mean you go out and just kill things just for the heck of it. But you go out and if you need specific nutrients that are in compact levels of protein, like meat, the Shakti will make you eat that meat. She will not let you eat vegetables or fruits or nuts. And then alternatively, she'll just turn that around and all you are allowed to eat are vegetables and fruits and nuts. And so she's looking out for you. It's just she has a better idea of what helps the Kundalini within your body than you do. And a lot of that will be based in nutritional value and, you know, levels of worship, levels of devotion, levels of total commitment to the Kundalini. Now, I happen to have a high degree of commitment to the Kundalini in my early activated stages. I didn't know what was going on, but I'd worked long enough in the medical field to know that I was not going to go to an MD about this. I knew exactly what was happening. That was when Prozac was just beginning to make its way into the market, and its devastating way into the market to begin to really dumb down humanity. So Prozac was there, and there was no way I was going to take anything like, I was not going to put anything like Prozac into my system. And I was supported by that with the Kundalini. And so if I did have an ailment or a concern or a medical concern, she would take care of it, and I would trust her first. So you can see I had a high degree of commitment with the Kundalini. Even when I didn't know it was the Kundalini, I just felt it was right. I felt it was right. And I encourage you to feel what the Kundalini Shakti is doing to each and every one of you that are listening to this. You who are listening on the archives in the future, you future people, this information is just as radiant and just as relevant to your life whenever you're hearing it. So you feel me right now as you listen to this. And for those of you listening on the phone, hello. We have plenty of phone call, people listening on the phone calls today. And plenty of new people, all the different guests, 1505, 1507, 1509, 1520, in the chat room, as well as Mary Jean Vincent and Brent, a new person. Hello, Brent Steele Silva. So as you begin to really matriculate yourself into the Kundalini awareness, you're going to be given very specific levels of difficult challenge. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to interview somebody here right now. Let's see here. Oh, my gosh. Let's see what my co-host has to say about this. Oh, look, she's being very... Come here, co-host. Come on.
Hi.
What?
I was well, maybe you go interview someone else.
What kind of a challenge have you received with regards to what the Kundalini was giving you to do?
Oh my goodness.
Pick one. Pick one,
no,
yeah.
don't make me pick one. I was thinking about the compulsions, that I
No.
had.
I want you to... Actually, I want you to go to the one where you had been a vegetarian for like 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden she commanded you to eat meat. Now, give us the story on that.
Okay. Well, I had been a meat eater, and before Kundalini awakened, I gave up meat, and I was a very committed vegetarian. Not only a vegetarian, but I also became a very committed vegan. So I was really committed, and it was good for me, and I loved it, and I was enjoying it. And it was given from the Kundalini, and I loved being that way. And then it was 4 years after I stopped eating meat in all, I began to get this feeling and this sense that I was to eat the fish. And I remember the first time when it came, I thought, what? Where did that come from? And I, ignored it. But it was a compulsion. It was something that just came to me, eat the fish. And because I would have had other, say, compulsions or communications from the Kundalini, I had that awareness. I knew it was Kundalini that was, telling me to do this. And I have to admit, I did not want to eat the meat, the fish, I really did not. So I resisted. And, it's very hard to explain the force that compulsion becomes. It's not something that you can really avoid. And I knew that I had to obey. I knew that I had to do it. And so very reluctantly, my ego was struggling. But the part of me that knew it was Kundalini wanted to do it, but oh my God, my ego didn't. And so what I decided to do is I thought back to when I used to eat fish and what was the least thing that I could eat that wasn't going to be fleshy, because I was so, abhorred at the idea of eating flesh of any description. And I thought I will have some seafood chowder because, that won't be too bad. And so I ordered the seafood chowder in a restaurant. I had been away for the weekend. Actually, as a matter of fact, it was leading up to your first time coming to Ireland, and I was with somebody who was visiting. And we went in and I shared with her, that I was having this compulsion, and we had a bit of a joke about it, but it was a very, very serious thing to me. So I ordered the bowl of seafood chowder. I sat down and I put my spoon into it, and even as it was coming up to my mouth, I really and truly did not want to eat this fish, And I put the fish soup into my mouth, and the taste was orgasmic, because immediately on obeying what I had been told to do by the Kundalini, I got that feedback. I got that affirmation that you were talking about, which was, yes, this is what I want you to do, my child. And so I had a huge infusion of Kundalini bliss, and I ate the soup. And I then expanded that. Once I had done it, I knew that I was to eat fish. And I did that, and that continued for about another 2 years.
Wow, very nice, my dear. Very nice. Perfect. Now I'm going to put you in the Shakti or Shiva blue here, and I'm going to come on over to another person here. And I believe this is Brooke. Hello, Brooke. Are you available to talk a little bit?
I'm here, I guess.
Hey, now, what level of challenge has the Kundalini given to you, and where were you able to feel that it was trying to communicate a change in your behaviors towards itself, say through the teacher, just directly to itself? Give us an example.
Gosh, the ones that are coming up for me, I don't feel comfortable talking about, but. So I can't really. Believe me, it's been challenging to the extreme. Yeah.
Well, have you, without going into it, then have you been able? Where have you been able to, shall we say? Because you're in an activated state, you see.
Right.
And Santara is in an awakened state, so very, very, very different states. So what has been your response, your typical response to the commands, shall we say, we'll just call it a command, that the Kundalini is giving to you? What's been your typical response?
Are you going to say resistance?
No, I'm not.
You would answer that?
Has that been the typical response for you?
Well, I've certainly had it come up. But
how do you correct it? What happens when you correct it?
I think it's an inner knowing of you feel like you're aligned in oneness and agreement with yourself and with Kundalini, which is the same thing in a way, but you feel a release. You do. But it's like what Santara was saying, it's just all those moments leading up to putting that spoon of soup in her mouth, she's like, oh, God. And then as soon as she puts it in and accepts it and eats the soup, she had that experience. So, I mean, I can relate to that, I feel, but it's getting past the ego resistance part that, I mean, yeah, it just is it's challenging.
Now, it's just if you can think back to the most challenging thing that you've had to do, and then you forced yourself to do it against the sense of your ego, against the advice of society, because sometimes Kundalini will put you at odds with the cultural values and the political correctness of what society has set up for everybody. What happens to you then when she gives you something that you must do that is outside of the agreement with society? What happens to you then?
Well, like I said, it's an inner release. It's an inner rest. It's an inner serenity that occurs for me. And, it's obviously more of a connection with my own Kundalini once I stop the resistance. That is tangible. It fills me.
So you get almost like you get that Pavlovian type of reward, right?
I feel like I do sometimes, and other times it takes a little bit more work. But yes, she's definitely given me that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, my dear. Now I'm going to put you right back in the blue here, and we're going to go to another activated individual, somebody in the activated state here, and there she is. And hello. I believe this would be Rosemary.
Hello?
Hi, Rosemary.
If you can hear me, it is.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, very well.
Okay, so now, what challenges has the Kundalini given to you that goes against your life and your lifestyle and your agreement with how you want to live life? And how did it feel, and what did you do when you stopped resisting? How did that feel?
Well, I have to, this is 3 years already. I would think just doing what I was told to do, like the details, and to fit the schedule so that I'm getting up soon enough so I can do my practice before I had to do whatever else, and being faithful to that.
So your practice has been a real boon to you then, right?
Yes, I think so. I've lived times in my life where I was under a schedule, but it never gave me what this gives me, for one thing. As you were talking, I was thinking you've given me things to do that were scary and the freezing cold with the homeless, and to be on the streets there, and to park my car and to walk around and then she lives in near Minneapolis, Minnesota, where right now I think it's like some sort of sub-zero degrees right now. I mean, we'll have a look at that. Go ahead, Rosemary. Tell me. So, it was in doing things and approaching people near the soup kitchen and taking things to them, not food then, but the coach, the couple times I did that, and to be standing in this very dark section. And there were times when that prompting came from within me. I remember telling you that time that it was very cold, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and this gentleman walked across the street in front of my red light with no coat on, and in a bit of a hurry. And I said, I'm sure, to get out of the cold. So I thought about it and listened, and the Goodwill was maybe 4 blocks away. So I went down and got a coat that I thought would fit him, and turned the car around and looked for him. And I looked several places and eventually did find him. And
that's a very good example, and then the Kundalini will give you that example. I mean, literally, I would be driving my car, and she would have me pass somebody picking cans up on the side of the road, and I had just won, $1,000 at a casino because of the Kundalini, and I would be compelled to come back and give that man, at least 10% of my winnings. And I would. And I would do just like you do, Rosemary. So nicely done, my dear. And I'm going to go ahead and put you.
Thank you. Thank you for your guidance.
My guidance is the Kundalini, my dear, and that sometimes people have a hard time accepting that. When it's like if I give them something really, really, really difficult to do, and they're going, well, were you weren't actually guided by the Kundalini to do this, were you? I mean, this goes against every known rule of social discourse, and you're going to ask me to go. Who's telling you to do this and why? So I take some heat from that with people, and it's okay. I can totally understand. It's a very, very legitimate question, in my opinion. But once again, it all boils down to levels of trust for the Kundalini. If you don't trust the Kundalini, then nothing that is happening to you in the later stages, but certainly within the early stages, is going to go well for you. You're going to struggle. You're going to go through fear. You're going to have levels of blockages that the Kundalini is going to begin to fracture. And as those blockages are fractured, it's going to fill itself in you. And you heard it when Amelia Santara was talking about, she put the spoonful of fish to her mouth, and it tasted so good. It was orgasmic, as she said, and she received a lot of Kundalini come into her system. So what occurred was that she was compelled to break through the blockage that her attitude of vegetarianism and vegan had formed within her. And that blockage said, oh, you can't eat meat under any circumstances whatsoever. And the Kundalini said, well, I think we need meat in this body right now, and so therefore fish is on the menu for her today. And she felt compelled. She had that compulsion to go in there, even though it was fighting against her ego and what the ego had begun to really assume was the status quo and the best way to be and all of these things. And the Kundalini just came in and broke through the blockage. The fish went into her mouth, and the Kundalini filled in the spaces where that blockage once was. This is a very typical way that this will happen. And I'm being reminded here to give the call-in number. If you would like to call in, you have a question about your Kundalini in any aspect of the Kundalini, feel free to call this number. The area code is 347-934-0026. Area code 347-934-0026. Feel free to ask any questions. For those of you that are in the chat room, feel free to ask your questions there on the chat room. We'll be happy to answer them as well. Oh, yes, and since I'm at about that time, I'll go ahead and do it now. I'm going to bring Santara back online here. We are with Santara. Hello, Santara.
Hi, Kristen.
Do you have announcements, my dear?
I do. I'm going to make the announcement where people can go if they want to make a donation to support Kundalini Awakening Systems and the work that Chrism does. You can go to this website. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com, and you will find a donate button there, and press that button, and it is a very easy thing to donate there through PayPal or a Visa card. All donations are gratefully received, very much so, and they're very necessary for this work to continue. I'll always say to you every single week, I love making this announcement because it's an opportunity to give people an opportunity to donate. But if you're in a position where, you can't donate, then there's no pressure whatsoever. There's no pressure at all anyway. But if you would like to help, if you would like to donate, please go to that website and we will be delighted to receive from you. I'll give it to you again. It's www.kundalini.blogspot.com. So blessings and thank you all very much. And whenever you're ready, Prism, I do have some questions for later.
Oh, thank you. I will address those in a second here. Thank you for that announcement also. And thank you, John O'Connor, your husband, for sponsoring this program. Ladies and gentlemen, this radio program only exists because of the kindness and the love of the O'Connor family. And I just want to say, on behalf of the many Kundalini people or the activated people and the awakened people, thank you, O'Connors, for your generosity and for all of the different levels of giving that you do, from moderating on Facebook and other areas, and to setting up seminars in Ireland, as you have done many, many times. And really, you are a tremendous blessing to this world, all of you, the whole O'Connor clan in the dual homes of the Cork area. So. Okay, all right. So, just wanted to say that. Hadn't said that in a while. Another thing I want to say, and this is a little bit off topic of what we've been talking about, but it did hit me earlier today before the show. I want you to be very, very, very kind and very, very, very careful and loving and considerate to your pets. The animals of this world show us what it is to live in balance with this world. They show us what it is to give absolute and total love and commitment to this world, to each other, to the environment. This is amazingly important. You must not allow yourself to be programmed by the society that you live in, if that society is programming you to be careless with other creatures. I don't care if it's a dog or a cat or a cockatoo or a turtle or a goldfish. Any and all creatures, including insects like spiders and scorpions and serpents and any of the venomous type of creatures that could kill you in a heartbeat, but they don't. So you don't go out of your way to squish them or to kill them or to hurt them. You do not do that. Be very, 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 very cogent of that scenario here in your life. Do not bet on chickens that are having razor blades fastened to them. Do not engage in that activity. Do not engage in dog fights where life is just being brutally ripped to shreds for the obscene benefit of the onlookers. So I just want to put that in. Really pay attention to how you treat other creatures. And I'm looking at here on the chat room, and Brent has a question, and he says, "Hi, Kristen. Do most people with activated Kundalini eventually have it fully awakened with a spinal sweep? Or is awakening something far more rare than activation?" Some people will take longer at moving towards a spinal sweep than others, but eventually a spinal sweep should occur unless karma or other types of interferences with that declare that it shouldn't. As I look at you, I think that you're the fact that you're even listening to this program is moving a person towards a spinal sweep. Brent, if you would start practicing those safeties every day, twice a day, that includes the 5 Tibetans, that includes attaching forgiveness and tolerance and trust and surrender and meditation to each of those 5 Tibetans, or just doing them separately, beginning to live the safeties as opposed to just doing them every now and again. Oh, I see. Okay. So this it's actually far more rare to have an activation that doesn't go into a spinal sweep eventually than it is to just stay within an activated state. But here in the West, where we have gobs and gobs of medications and pills and selected serotonin reuptake inhibitors called SSRIs, a person can be artificially forced to stay within an activated state rather than be able to take it all the way into the awakened state. And Brent, you're very astute in your understanding that there are different levels within the activated state that will lead one to, I get this from you, I just kind of get this. You didn't ask the question, you didn't say it, but I feel that you know it. There are different stations within activation, just as there are different stations within the awakened state. With the activation, the Kundalini can go away, or at least go back into dormancy. With the awakening, it will never ever go back into dormancy. And typically, with certain areas of activation, it won't go back into dormancy either. A lot of it's going to depend, Brent, on where the individual is. Where the individual is. You've heard people mention things like partial activation, and I get, to me, you're partially what, pregnant? So you don't really get a partial activation. It's just that some people, because of their karma, because of previous lives, will have a different need of a different level of the energy going through them. For some people, it just takes a match. For other people, it takes a volcano. They're still all going to be on the same path. It's just that the triggers are just very, very different for individual, and those triggers are going to be based upon the karma and what the person is bringing to the table with regards to having this life and having a probability in this life reflect the awakening Kundalini. And excellent question, Brent. Please feel free to ask others, and hopefully I answered it to your satisfaction. And I'm going to go over here. Yes, ma'am.
Just bringing your attention to that wonderful rocking chair noise.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. Everybody in the chat room, everybody in the archives, everybody on the phone, I apologize.
And you've a question there when you're ready on the air.
We're hovering, right? We're going to hover?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, here we go. And hovering. Hello, Greg. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. My question had to do with, I had this reoccurring dream of Hanuman. And
okay.
He was
Hanuman, just for everybody's, not everybody's Hindu. Hanuman is the monkey god within the Hindu divine pantheon. Please continue, Greg.
And in over a few times, he's always giving me coconut water to drink.
Oh.
And it seems that's the only time I've really ever had dreams about coconut water. But it's always this healing, divine. It just makes everything better. Very empowering.
Well, it's very empowering. It does a lot for your electrolytes. You could literally be stranded on a desert island in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and if you had a coconut tree, you could survive. So yeah, the coconut water is a huge deal, and this is why the Kundalini, suggests that people partake of it. It is a multi-platform nutritional food that is exceptionally helpful to people having Kundalini activation or people having a Kundalini awakening or both. And so, yeah, good. Now, I'd suggest that you thank Hanuman, get a little statue of a monkey or just a drawing of or a painting or a photograph, and be grateful and demonstrate your gratitude to Hanuman for giving you that suggestion, and definitely take that suggestion to heart, Greg.
Yeah, because I wasn't really sure if it was just a spiritual aspect or if it was it's probably both.
This is physio-spiritual. This is physical-spiritual combining itself to give you a very, very specific instruction.
Okay, sounds good. I've been doing some, I do some Hanuman mantras occasionally also. I find that helps.
There you go, my friend. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome. Putting you into the listening mode. Wow, we got a caller that wasn't going to, spice it up for everybody. How nice. Coming back to Brent, and Brent says, thank you very much. That was very clear. And so there we go. There we have it. And I would like to go ahead and open up the floor, my dear, to your questions. Santara, I'm going to put you in the red here. Come on, red. There we are.
Okay, Prism, thank you.
Sorry, everybody, about the rocking chair. My bad.
Yeah, you kind of haven't stopped either.
It stopped right now. I'm freezing myself.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the first question is, here we go, where is it? I want to read the private questions first, the ones that came into my inbox. My question is about the entity stage, and if it might be less dramatic for a person who has had a top-down activation. If the person has been for years at the refinement stage, then might the entity stage be less painful? I mean, less brutal, with maybe less density, I think, because of the refinement process beforehand. I guess I'm thinking of my own situation and pondering about what may come next or not. And whatever does come, I am darn sure going to accept it. So the question is about the top-down activation. Does it make a difference? Hello? Prism? Oh, okay. Hi, guys. I'm looking here, and I think it's Chrism has been bumped off, not me. I'm looking at the switchboard, and I've just had to save the program. Okay, so it's me. You can hear me, and Chrism will no doubt phone back in again. Okay, so I actually don't know the answer to that question at all, so I'm not even going to attempt an answer at it. But let me have a look at some of the other questions and see if I can. Okay, so there was a question on the group, and it was, does Kundalini cause emotional outbursts? When meditating today and while listening to a new playlist, and when a certain Hindu chant started, I burst into tears, and I don't know why. I also danced with kriyas that changed for each song. It was kind of beautiful. And she said her Kundalini is activated but not awakened. And I do know a little bit about this. Yes, the emotional body very much expresses during a Kundalini activation and awakening, and it's very, very normal. And so what I have experienced would be you just allow the tears to flow when they happen. And very often when the tears are flowing, exactly as that person said, it will feel kind of beautiful. You won't really know why you're crying. You won't feel sadness particularly, but the tears are flowing. And you just allow that to happen, because as those tears are flowing, you don't really even have to know why. The tears can be doing lots of different things, clearing blockages. There's certainly a release happening. And all you need to do is allow the tears to flow and surrender that to the Kundalini. I suppose one of the things that I would have mentioned as well is there are emotional outbursts that can occur as well. And these emotional outbursts are outbursts of the ego. You know, when the emotional body is, you know, controlled by the ego, when it's given the freedom to express however it wants to through the emotional body, well, then those outbursts are a little bit different. They can be, you know, not such a good thing. You know, they can be damaging to the I suppose, how they're projected upon others, but also to the person themselves. So I know for me, when I would go through a phase of this, and it happens to all of us, you know, things are amplified in a Kundalini context. Our emotions are amplified in a Kundalini context. You know, we can be oversensitive, and there are many reasons why this amplification can cause these outbursts. And so if you're going through a phase like that, the safeties are an excellent way. They're for me, they've been the way and the means to help myself to navigate out of those kind of patterns. It's kind of tied in a way to, I think, what Kristen was speaking about earlier, which is, you know, the changes in the personality as the Kundalini is bringing transformation to us. Well, then we are being, you know, brought of becoming in our personality. And there's always, you know, that's a time of flux, and there will be times when we will have these ego-driven emotional outbursts. And so the safeties can be the way and the means to navigate our way out of such patterns and allow our ego transformation from the Kundalini to develop. It really, you know, the safeties bring such a balance. They really can bring such a balance, and they can assist us in so many ways, because they can help us to grow our forgiveness and to grow our love and to grow our gratitude. And that really has been my experience with the safeties. Because they are there as a toolbox. You know, once something happens, we can, and the more we practice, guys, the more it becomes automatic. It's a little bit like, you know, that struggle between what am I going, you know, the struggle with the ego. Take the soup example. You've got the ego going, no, I'm not going to eat the soup. And you've got the compulsion to eat the soup. Well, it's the same with the emotional outbursts. In a way, you're there and you're going, I'm so angry. This is so not fair. Look what was done unto me, or whatever. I'm going to get that person back, whatever your response would be. But if you know that you are to go to forgiveness, if you choose to go directly to forgiveness, if that becomes a habit for you, as it has for me, well then that is the most amazing assistance that you can possibly have during such emotional outbursts. And so you would choose forgiveness immediately. You would just know. So you would go into forgiving that person. And, you know, again, your ego will go, wah, squirm. But you will forgive. You will say the words of forgiveness, and you will be willing to forgive, and you will authentically want to forgive. And so, I hope I'm being heard. And I've got, can I actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over here. Let's see who I've got here. Hello? Is that Rosemary?
It is.
Rosemary, am I being heard?
Yes, you're being heard very loud and clear.
Okay, because we've had some phone calls being dropped. I think I've got Eileen there as well. I'm just going to go over and check.
Yeah, nothing dropped for me, but I have to be heading out pretty soon, so glad to tell you that.
That's okay. Eileen, can you hear as well?
Okay.
And here's Chrism. Excellent, Chrism.
Oh, my word. I can't believe.
I'm so sorry.
So it's all your fault, Amelia.
I know. It always is.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Well,
I don't know what happened. I got bumped right off. Actually, I do know what happened. My computer froze. My computer froze. I don't know why it froze. I couldn't even move the cursor. I had to just press on the power button continuously and totally go off. And I so apologize to anybody. And I have no idea what I was talking about where it cut me off. And so, Santara, were you listening?
Yeah, well, what actually happened was I was reading out that question, and when I came to the end of the question, there was no response from you at all. And so I could see on the studio you were gone. So I went and I asked a question that I could answer myself. And that's what I had been doing until just now. And then I was just checking with the others if I could be heard. So I can go back and ask that question again.
Well, I think I remember the question. The question was whether or not it was easier to have the entity interactions with the top-down as opposed to a bottom-up, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I'd say it's harder with a top-down than with a bottom-up. It's much harder to go into density from refinement than it is to go from refinement. It's much harder to go from refinement into density rather than from density into refinement. So there you have it.
Okay, but the question wasn't exactly that. The question was, is the entity stage, if one is going to have one, is it going to be possibly less dramatic if a person has had years and years of refinement as well as that?
But they're coming from a top down. So you're saying they've had years and years of refinement from a top down, right?
Yes.
Possibly. I mean, that's getting a little more into, say, an individual custom type of scenario. Typically, it is much more difficult to go from refinement into density and then to have the entity phase on top of that. For this individual, they say they've had years and years of refinement. That can take some of the difficulty away from it.
Okay, but they also... Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you, Kristen. So the next question is, sparks used to fall from the sky on me in the earlier stages. Now drops of water fall where there is not a trace of a single cloud in the sky. What does this indicate?
What was the first part?
Sparks used to fall from the sky on me.
Oh, sparks.
Now drops of water fall. Yeah.
Oh. Well, what does it indicate? It indicates that a person is experiencing spiritual phenomena that's being realized on the physical system, and that is what it's indicating. One was tangible to the eye, the other is tangible to the skin. But either of them are both spiritual phenomena that's being perceived through the physical system. So there you have it. But it doesn't have to be a Kundalini. You don't have to have Kundalini to have that occur.
Oh, okay. And the next question is, how does a person that is blind from childhood and who has never seen light attain self-realization?
Practicing the safeties. And perceiving the material that's been put out there, the information that's been put out there. If I knew how to write Braille on the computer, I would. I think you need a printer, a certain kind of printer for Braille to be given for the blind. I think it's such a great idea. I'd love to give this information to the blind because I think the blind would go very, very, very quickly. They would be able to see what we cannot see. They would be able to experience in many ways what we cannot experience by virtue of the gift of blindness. The blind can do the 5 Tibetans. The blind can be forgiving. The blind can be grounded. The blind can have any of the experiences that the sighted can have. Blindness actually works for you within the Kundalini continuum. It works for you because you're not dependent upon the eyesight to validate your existence. Matter of fact, it's just the opposite for you. You're touching and you're feeling and you're smelling and tasting and hearing. You're not seeing. And so your tactility increases, your hearing increases, your the sense of smell and taste increases. I was at John of God's in 2010. John of God's is big, famous healer in Brazil that attracted a lot of people within the last 15 years. He's done very well. He's very famous. And if you look up on Google the word John God, you'll see his name is João Teixeira de Faria in Brazilian Portuguese. But there was a woman, a 19-year-old girl there, who had some sort of a nervous disorder. She wasn't able to walk. She was being pushed around in a wheelchair, and she could use a walker, but she wasn't able to walk unassisted. And she said she confided in me as we were sitting next together, and she says, I can smell them. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I can smell the different spirits that come by. And I said, really? And she says, yeah. And she says, this is what was the guy's name? The Dr.
No, can't remember. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Augusto.
Did it start with Gus? Yeah.
Was it Augusto? Dr. Augusto?
I think that's what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so he's, this Dr. Augusto's coming. I can smell him. And even though she wasn't blind, she had this elevated psychic sense within her nasal processes that allowed her to differentiate different spiritual sense. She could sense the difference between Dr. Augusto and, say, Saint
Ignatius.
Saint Ignatius, which is also what in English? So what's Ignatius?
Well, that's his name.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so the saint, the dominant spiritual presence down there at that time was Saint Ignatius of Loyola, and she could smell him, and she'd say, he's coming, I can smell him. Well, you got your eyes closed at the John of God's place. You're not supposed to open your eyes because it breaks through the energetics, and she said, I can smell him. He's coming. And lo and below, yeah, you could feel Saint Ignatius as being mediumed or channeled, I guess, through John of God. You could feel that entity come by, and the blind would have a very, very, very similar process for themselves. They'd be able to taste, smell, touch, or in some way hear and sense their phenomena and their interaction with the divine. The divine is not limited by human frailty. If you call blindness a frailty, which I don't really, that doesn't feel good to me. It is not a frailty. If anything, it is a strength. It is a strength, it is a strengthener, and it teaches you in many ways how to walk in the physical and walk in the divine at the same way. So, for instance, your physical eyes may not be able to see, but your third eye certainly can. A blind person does not have a non-functioning sixth chakra. Blind people are quite functional within their sixth chakra, and their esoteric awarenesses are fully intact. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. Next question, please.
That's actually, that's a good to know, Chris, and thanks. And the question is, it seems I am changing eye color. Is this because of the Kundalini?
Yes. My eye color also changed. I used to have strictly blue eyes, blue, nothing other than blue. And now I have green in the middle of my blue, coming right from the iris, right on the inside of the iris. I have green on the inside and then blue on the outside, and so it will definitely change your eye color for sure. Next question.
Okay. Since I can't get any watermelons in Germany at this time of the year, I'm kind of craving for pomegranates. Kay wanted me to say this, so I'm
Pomegranates are another really, really, really healthy food. A huge free radical scavenger. They're very, very healthy to eat. Just make sure you take that white stuff off, and you know, if the pomegranate, if you see a pomegranate on a tree, if it's ripe, it's supposed to be cracked. You'll see a crack exposing some of the seeds on one part of the pomegranate. That's natural. That is not a mistake. And most people would think that it's a mistake if it has a crack in it. But no, the actual pomegranate itself, when it gets ripe, it forces itself to crack open, and that's one of the ways that it seeds itself across the land. Is that the seeds will eventually fall out of the fruit onto the ground and then be eaten by birds or other animals, and then the seeds are, you know, disseminated throughout the environment, you know, by those activities. Pomegranate's really good, but I would actually have this person drink coconut water in addition to pomegranates.
Okay, thank you. There's two parts to this. For the individual, does it matter who made the initiation through a Shakti path or any other distant modality? Is Kundalini absolutely independent by itself, no matter who has given the Shakti path?
Yes. Yes, it is. It is independent of any corporeal, material-based, flesh-based point. The thing you want to be careful about is you know, is this person that's giving you Shaktipat, or, you know, these different scenarios that you're, you know, are you going to the Oneness University in India and all of this stuff? Look at what kind of attachments are connected to the giving of that grace, and go for the one that has the least amount of attachment. And by attachment, I mean, are you paying, you know, $1,000 for that guru to bat his eye at you? Are you being told to do things with your life that are for the, you know, for something outside of the Kundalini? Are you being, you know, told to take a certain kind of drug or a certain kind of, you know, chemical in order to achieve the receptive state so that you'll receive that energy? I mean, unless they're really teaching the person to be forgiving, to be kind, to be constructive, to be benevolent and truthful and honest and all these things, and you know, unless they're doing that, what's going on? What did you just do, Santara?
Me?
Yeah, what were you just doing?
I'm not doing anything.
Were you rubbing something on the iPad, or?
Oh, I was rubbing my knee.
Don't do that.
Okay, don't rub my knee. My gosh. It's probably next to my microphone on my iPad on my laptop.
I think so. That's right. I thought you were laughing. It sounded like you were laughing. Oh, gosh. So I totally broke my focus on that. So I think that's probably complete. Over.
Okay. Let me see. There was a question on the group today or yesterday or recently. A lady was speaking about being really terrified because she was hearing voices, her twin flame, and then there was voices in her head, you know, and they were being mean and evil and yelling, and she hadn't slept, and she was concerned that evil was taking over her body. But then at the end of the comments, she says this, now I do not even know if these voices are from the Kundalini awakening or not, since I used a spirit box and a spirit board to communicate. None of this Kundalini symptoms started until after I used this spirit board. Now I'm trying to figure out what I need to make this stop.
She used a Ouija board. She used a Ouija board. Yeah. So just so FYI, everybody who is ever going to listen to this in the future, who is listening to it now, do not use Ouija boards. OIJA. Do not use them. Don't use them unless you want to have what she's having. Very common. Very common. People are so interested in gaining psychic powers. You know, and there's so many people, especially if you live in the Twin Cities area, you know, so many people want to be a channeler. I want to be a channeler. I feel so spiritual that I just feel that I need to be a channeler so that I can feel even more spiritual and have people come up and ask spiritual questions of me. Did I sound New Agey? Was that New Agey, Amelia?
Yes, Chris.
Don't use the Ouija board because you'll open up a can of worms like this person did. Okay. Now, this person has landed on a Kundalini group, on a Kundalini a Kundalini internet community, and that is more of an indication that she is able to metabolize at this point. Because she's landed on a Kundalini group, I would suggest that the voices are coming from an activation that is waiting to occur for her. Now, you know, she may already have the ability, you know, maybe a spiked ability to hear spiritual awareness, and this is what would cause a person to hear spiritual voices or things of that nature. There were other things that she did that she hasn't stated, that she talked to me about on a private message. You know, and so I won't go into those here, but she has done other things as well. And, you know, when you hear the voices in a Kundalini context, when you hear the voices, don't get freaked out by them. Just ignore them as much as you possibly can. Ignore them as much as you possibly can. Do not converse with them. Do not say, "In the name of Jesus, be gone." Don't say that, because that's not going to work. Don't go, "Oh, in the name of Guru Krishnamananda, I say to be gone." That's not going to work. Okay, this is between you and those entities. And one of the biggest tools that can defeat the whole entity scenario is to just don't pay them any attention. It's the attention that they want to have from you. It's the attention that gives them energy and the ability to really, really mess with your scenario. That is the intention. And so you really want to be careful not to go there. Not to go there. Do not converse with them. Don't threaten them. Don't fight them. Don't try to kick them out. Just do your best to ignore them. And they'll start cussing at you. They'll start screaming at you. They'll tell you you're in major danger, that your mom's going to die, that your husband's cheating on you, it just goes on and on and on. They're going to tell you anything they can do to get your attention and to begin to dominate your awareness. And this, you just ignore them completely. I don't care if you see that head coming out of the wall or the head coming out of a restaurant table or whatever the scenario is. Just know this is an entity. My Kundalini. Remember, I'm answering this within a Kundalini context. This is from my Kundalini. My Kundalini is testing me, and I will pass this test. I will pass this test. And so you just ignore them and continue to ignore them. Over.
Thank you, cousin. Could I just ask a question, not particularly about this lady, but she, in general, about twin flames? Do entities use twin flames as an access point, as a way of hooking a person?
Oh yes. Oh, this is a great one. This is like, you're the activated person, and you're having the entity phase, and the entities are going, "Oh dear, Santara, I am your twin flame. I so wish to meet you, my dear, but this is the only way I can do it right now. I'm the twin flame."
know, Crystal, I'd need a better voice before I'd fall for that. That would put me right off. I'm sorry.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they do. And the person wants to be loved so much, and this is coming from such an unusual source for them that they swallow it hook, line, and sinker because it feeds them where they feel they most need to be fed. And so, of course, they come on the board, and they come on the communities, and they go, oh, my twin did this, and oh, my twin did that. And they're just, oh, so twinned. And it's just not so. It's an entity that is interacting. Your twin will not necessarily need to communicate to you in such ways. Twin flames are there. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're very, very, very uncommon to be reunited in the physical. I know of one, the same director that put the Kundalini movie together that works with Kundalini Awakening Systems 1. He also did a film, a privately funded film about a German couple that were both killed in some of the Nazi death camps, and they were reunited by virtue of that. And that I don't have that's not a real problem. It's not a Kundalini thing, but the twin flame scenario is very, very, very much abused by entities, and the innocent people that fall for this, they just are looking for love, and they're just, in this case, they're looking for love in the wrong place. You know, you don't listen to discarnate entities. You do not interact with them, especially if they're saying some sort of a thing that some aspect of you really wants to hear. Oh, you have this eternal love. You know, the eternal love. Oh my God, that's ear candy to a lot of people. You know, people going through, different machinations of love. It's like, oh no, don't worry, my love. I'm here for you. I wait for you. Our love is eternal. It's like, oh please. And I'll suggest you change the channel. Shakti's love for you has the eternal quality. God's love for you has the eternal quality. The Kundalini bliss and ecstatic love that is demonstrably given upon the physical system, those are real levels of eternal unity. Not some entity going, oh yes, we're twin flames. Soulmates is another one. Soulmates, same thing. Same deal, different. Twin flame is far more dramatic than soulmate. Maybe, I guess, I don't know. But within a Kundalini context, these are machinations of the ego's desire to be loved and accepted. Within the understandings that culture has given that ego to expect. Over.
Thank you, Prism. Can Kundalini take the form of other animals other than a snake? And is it different for different people? I've heard things like monkeys, tigers, and I'm not sure if this is true or not.
Well, as we heard from people can see monkeys. Monkeys I would not put at the top of the predatorial food chain, however. More often so the tigers, the panthers, the jaguars, the lions, the wolves, the serpents, the spiders, the praying mantises, the killer whales, the dolphins, and actually horses have come up in that, even though they're definitely not a top of the food chain predator, but they do come to people. The Kundalini comes in many, many, many different forms. It'll come as a lizard as well, as a crocodile or an alligator as well. and it'll come in many different forms, animal forms or insect forms or plant forms. It will come to people in such ways. Over.
What about the experience that a person might have of actually being an animal, Chrism?
Say again?
What about the experience a person might have of being that animal in a Kundalini context?
Shape-shifting?
Yeah,
that can occur. That's not out. That's not too outrageous. It can occur through just through the Kundalini itself. You don't need to take a drug like they do in the Emerald Forest. If any of you have ever seen the movie The Emerald Forest, I highly recommend it. But within a Kundalini context, you don't need to do ayahuasca or any of the mind-altering drugs to achieve shape-shifting. Shape-shifting basically is changing your shape, changing the shape of your body, or having your body or your consciousness placed inside that of an animal or a bird or some sort of a creature. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. On the group today, somebody, I think you recommended a fast for somebody, and the person was saying, yes, that sounded right, and that it's going to be challenging because it was, they love food. They did drink over Christmas, but they're not into it so much. But they say this: I have been going back and forth and wondering if I have had a Kundalini awakening or a possession or overcloak. I haven't heard that term. I don't know what that means. But the person said, is this possible?
And over what?
Cloak?
Overcloak?
Yeah. Is that a well-known term?
Okay. Anybody in the chat room, what's overcloak mean? Cole, Brent, Vincent, Mary Jean, any of the guests? Is that like an overcoat, I guess? An overcoat?
Does it mean that it's a possession and not a Kundalini awakening? I suppose the person is asking, is this possible?
What now? Is the fasting what? Is
the person you gave a person a fast today?
Ask the question. Just ask the question. What is the question?
Well, I have been going back and forth wondering if I have had a Kundalini awakening or a possession or overcloak. Is this possible, Chrism?
Whatever they're calling an overcloak, I have no clue. Okay. Yes, people can be possessed. It's very, very easy to get possessed. But this can be Kundalini as well. So I guess she'll just have, or he or she will just have to follow their phenomena and figure out what is speaking the loudest to them with regards to whether it's the mysterious overcloak or the Kundalini or an entity that is possessing her.
And if an entity is possessing, what's the motivation? What do they gain by doing all those negative things to people? That was another question.
That's their test. That's their job. The Shakti allows them to do this work on people. You notice the Shakti doesn't step in and say, "Thou shalt not contaminate my future vessel," right? Mm-hmm. She doesn't do that. She allows the person to experience the exalted state of interdimensional communication, and then she says, "Just don't pay any attention. Own your space by not giving it away through the contract of communication." You can give your space away by initiating a contract of communication with a discarnate entity. So you don't talk to them ever. You don't believe them ever. You do not, even if they speak truth, you do not use them as a source of truth for your own self. You use the Kundalini. You let the Kundalini, communicate to you in the way she wants to communicate to you, not through entities. Between you and the Kundalini, there is only one possible middle person, and that would be a teacher that she assigns you, i.e., you go to this teacher, or you go to this belief system, or you do this practice, or you do this martial art, whatever it is. She's the one that is ultimately in charge of your spiritual evolution. She is in charge of assigning you a teacher. That teacher is beholden to the Shakti. That teacher is owned by the Shakti. A slave to the Shakti. Remember that?
I do. I'm thinking that was Bodhiga Bay, wasn't it? 2010.
That was, yeah.
Slave to the Shakti.
We had a big gathering, just so everybody knows. We had a big gathering out here in 2010 or 11. And we brought like maybe 20 Kundalini activated and awakened individuals all together on one beach right near Bodega Head. If you look up on the web, it's Bodega and then space HEAD. And that was right near our campground there. And you know, we had a little kind of like a little mini seminar too, and a Shaktipat event, and you know, it was discerned that we are all slaves to the Shakti. I'm a slave to the Shakti. So there you have it. Next question.
Okay, so I'm having some serious upper back, neck, and head I'm having some serious upper back, head, and neck issues. Any advice to help ease the spiritual growth spurt?
So this person is assuming that the pain they're receiving is from a spiritual growth?
Yeah, well, they start off by saying, anyone have pain during awakenings? And then, I'm having this, and any advice to help? Yeah, they do.
I see. Just a second. Yes. They must learn to have this pain and to accept this pain and allow that pain to aid their infusion rather than resisting the pain. They need to accept the pain. They also need to follow the safeties. They're not following the safeties. And it looks like they're still eating things that they shouldn't eat, and they still have attitudes of control that are blocking them. And so when that Kundalini encounters that blockage, that pain erupts in that area. So this person needs to give up the control of their life and of their spiritual evolution to the Kundalini. They need to surrender completely their mind, their body, their actions, their thoughts, their dreams, their life, and the expressions of their life to the Kundalini. And don't think that that's just going to put you out of business. It won't. You still have your job, your wife, your kids, the school, whatever it is that you have in your life. There may be some changes that occur, yes, that's for sure. But it's not necessarily going to just, throw you out of your home onto the street. That is not necessarily the agenda for everybody, okay? This person needs to surrender themselves to these growth spurts. We don't always have our comfort expectations honored by the Kundalini. Over.
Thank you. For the last 2 months, I've got these dreams of environments. They look like when I was a kid. The images come out in my dreams from subconscious, and I would never remember this environment consciously. It is amazing. What is your opinion on this? Is it about healing or revisiting something? I know. Maybe I shouldn't pick those questions.
Read it again.
For the last 2 months, I've had these dreams of environments, which look like when I was a kid. The image comes out in my dreams from the subconscious. I could never remember these environments myself consciously. It's really amazing. What is your opinion on this? Healing or revisiting something?
Just enjoy it.
Okay.
Enjoy it. Environments, different places that a person may have lived or might be going to live in. Doesn't give a lot of information on what kind of environment. Is it a fantastic environment? But I'm not getting a lot of information on that at all.
Okay.
Next question.
That's kind of it, Quizzen, because the one about the emotional, I answered as best as I could the one about the emotional outbursts. Do you want me to ask you that one?
Did I already answer it?
No, I did.
Go ahead, ask it.
The question is, does Kundalini cause emotional outbursts? When meditating today and while listening to a new playlist and when a certain Hindu chant started, I burst into tears and I don't know why. I also danced with kriyas that changed for each song. It was kind of beautiful. My Kundalini is activated but not awakened.
Yeah, it can cause emotional outbursts. These emotional outbursts, either energy is being taken away, i.e. a blockage is being dismantled, or an infusion is taking place. But the emotional body is a very, very important body. It's as important as the physical body, as the mental body, as any of the 5 bodies of human expression. So if you're having an emotional outburst, that is all good. And if you're listening to Sanskrit chants, that is also very good, because the Sanskriti people, the rishis, that lived about anywhere from 8,000 to 9,000 years ago, they developed a language that was composed of prayers to the divine. And these prayers to the divine were basically prayers to the Kundalini, the inner divine that we all have. And if you're crying, if you burst out in tears, it means you're responding from a Kundalini vector. You're responding to the grace that is still contained within those words. And so, I would burst into tears when I would be listening to Hindu chants too. I even have a group that I would recommend people listen to. It's they're called Shanti Shanti. That's Shanti, and then repeated, Shanti Shanti. And then you forget about their rock and roll music, which is just pathetic. It's just in my taste, I should say. But their chants are absolutely superb. And the chanting is the only reason that I would buy their music. And the sacred chanting of the ancient rishis are very, very powerful, and they still contain the energetic particulate of the Kundalini with which they were created. And so, a person can have extreme levels of emotional outburst from just hearing the chants, for sure. I did.
Okay, that's the end of question time, Chrism.
Thank you. And I see that Brent is typing away again, and Cole suggested it might be a spell, the meaning of overcloak, and I'm not buying that. But thank you, Cole, for the addition. So yeah. I think it means overcoat. That's what I think it means. But I don't know what overcoat means. I think it might be a possession. And
they might mean it might mean a possession masquerading maybe as Kundalini. I don't know.
Right. Now, Brent is asking a question. He says, many websites speak of a collective ascension, and they list ascension symptoms, many of which are parallel to activated Kundalini signs and symptoms. Do you have anything to say about the idea of ascension versus Kundalini? Kundalini, what people do is, because they're so frightened of having the Kundalini because they've read things about Kundalini syndrome, and Kundalini uses tigers and serpents, spiders, and all the things that nobody likes to really handle. A lot of people don't anyway. And so what they have done is they tried to make it easier. They say, it's ascension symptoms. And they'll list all these basic Kundalini signs and symptoms, and they'll go, you're inside of the ascension. And they're about as far from their ascension as they could be, but, they might be having Kundalini. Kundalini doesn't mean you're going to ascend. It means that you're going to evolve. And this collective ascension, which is so silly. There is no collective ascension. Not everybody is going to ascend at the same time. There is no collective ascension. And now a lot of these people are going, we are one. We are one. You know, and it's just, we are one, but we are also distinct at the same time. We also are individuated oneness at the same time. And so, no, this idea of a collective ascension, you have to earn any kind of a spiritual evolution that comes to you. Now, yeah, you may have earned it in another lifetime, and you may indeed have, be on a great path with it. But this collective ascension just it's kind of a herd mentality approach to the individual work that a person has to do with regards to having spiritual evolution come to them. This idea of ascension. It means, if you look at what the meaning of the word ascension means, it means basically, you're ascending to heaven. So it's just like, there seems to be a level of ascension that is happening, say, when the Christians, say, oh, Jesus, when he comes again, well, he's going to ascend us all at the same time. And those who are not in that ascendant format, well, then they're going to go straight to hell or to purgatory. And those who are in the ascended format, well, then they'll go to heaven and receive their just deserts. But no, as far as within my Kundalini, what my Kundalini is telling me about this is they're hijacking Kundalini symptoms and replacing it with ascension symptoms, with the ascension having a completely different meaning and understanding than what Kundalini means and what it gives as an understanding. So that's my answer, Brent. I hope I haven't stepped on too many toes with that, but I know that I do, because I'm not buying into the escapism of what people have when they say, "Oh, we are all one, therefore we can do anything we want because we are all one. We don't have to practice. We don't have to do anything of a spiritual responsibility because we're all one." And I've never bought into that. And if I weren't Kundalini awakened, I wouldn't buy into that as well. But it's an excellent question. Boy, you're hitting home runs, one right after another, Brent. So thank you for that question, and I hope the response was okay. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of the program here, and I just want to say thank you to everybody. It looks like Cole's typing. Cole, you better type quick, my friend. I want everybody to know that the answers I give come straight from the Kundalini in me. They do not. I don't buy into the entity thing. I don't buy into anything that I've experienced in my 25 plus years of having awakened Kundalini. This all comes straight from it to you, from her to you. And I want to thank you all for joining me here, all the guests, all the callers, and all the future listeners in the archives. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amelia. Do you have last words, my dear?
I suppose I would like to say, Chrism, that I know your guidance is for the Kundalini. If your guidance was not from the Kundalini, I would not follow your guidance. It is indeed, and it's been my experience, and I'm very grateful for it. So see you all next week. And that's it.
All right, everybody. I'm going to end it like I started. Here we go.
beobachten wir heute mal die Geschicklichkeit von Holger, dem Schreiner. Während seine rechte Hand ein Brett sägt, schreibt die linke eine Rechnung. Gleichzeitig öffnet sein Fuß die seitliche Schiebetür seines Citroën Jumpy.
Ein guter Transporter ist wie ein guter Handwerker, ein echter Allrounder. Der Citroën Jumpy schon ab 175 € im Monat. Optional mit Hands-Free Schiebetüren. Jetzt bei den Citroën Business Days. Citroën.